Life teaches us in mysterious ways. The harder we try to control every tiny thing, the results, the timing, how people react, the more worn out and annoyed we get. We map out our lives with extreme detail, believing that if we just push harder, work more, and never release our grip, everything will finally click into place. But what if the truth is exactly backwards? What if the second you stop pushing, stop clinging, and start believing in the process, everything begins moving smoothly? This isn't about quitting. It's about knowing where your real strength lives. The ancient Stoics figured this out thousands of years ago. Marcus Aurelius wrote about accepting what comes naturally instead of wasting energy fighting against what's real. He knew that struggling against things we can't change only brings pain. The true fight is always inside us, teaching our minds to focus on what we can shape and releasing everything else. That's exactly what we're exploring today. The mindset change that can revolutionize how you approach winning, relationships, and your own inner calm. Because if you're always stressed, feeling like nothing goes your way no matter what you do, there's a reason. You might be gripping too tightly to things that were never meant to be controlled. This video isn't just another self-help talk. This is about something bigger: how to live with genuine confidence, moving through life with calm certainty instead of worry and irritation. Trust me, if you stick around until the end, you'll leave with a totally different view on getting what you want without desperately chasing it. Before we jump in, here's one simple, free thing I'll ask. If you value what we're sharing here, tap that subscribe button. It takes 1 second, but it helps this message reach more people who need it. Let's dive in. Lesson 1. Release your grip on outcomes. We waste so much of our lives worrying about results, waiting for that job to come through, hoping that relationship clicks, stressing about whether our hard work will actually matter. We convince ourselves that if we just work a bit harder, push a bit more, we can make things go our way. But what really happens? The tighter we hold onto a specific result, the more worried we become. The journey stops feeling good, and our happiness depends completely on something we can't totally control. And that's where we get stuck. The Stoics got this. Epictetus taught that we don't suffer because of what happens. We suffer because we're attached to wanting things to happen a certain way. He said, "Don't wish for things to happen the way you want them. Instead, wish that what happens happens as it should. Then you'll be content." In other words, instead of tying your happiness to one specific result, focus on the journey. Focus on what you actually control: your actions, your commitment, your attitude. Let go of everything else. Think about a painter creating art. If they obsess over making every brushstroke perfect, worrying about how people will judge their work, they'll never get into the zone. But when they stop caring about the final result and simply focus on painting itself, something amazing happens. They get completely lost in the moment. The work becomes easy. And ironically, that's when they create their best pieces. This same idea works for everything in life. Work, relationships, personal growth. When you stop fixating on how things must end up, you give yourself permission to actually enjoy the ride. This is especially clear in relationships. Have you seen someone try way too hard to impress another person? Their energy feels needy, almost forced. And what happens? Pushes people away. But when someone is confident, comfortable with who they are, not worried about one particular outcome, they naturally draw others in. Why? Because they're not controlled by fear. They trust that whatever should happen will happen. That's the magic of letting go. Now let's talk about success. So many people think if they don't hit a specific goal by a certain age, they've failed. They treat life like a strict checklist. Graduate by this age. Make this much money. get married, reach this level. And when things don't follow the plan, they spiral into doubt. But here's the reality. Success isn't a straight road. It's full of turns, setbacks, and surprising opportunities. If you're too attached to one outcome, you might miss an even better opportunity that life is trying to hand you. Take a second and ask yourself, what am I holding on to too tightly? What goal or expectation is causing me stress? Now imagine what would happen if you loosen that grip. Not giving up, but trusting that whatever happens, you'll be fine. That's detachment. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop needing things to go exactly one way to feel peaceful. So how do you actually practice this in real life? First, remind yourself daily that outcomes aren't yours to control. All you control is your effort, your discipline, and your mindset. Second, change how you think. Instead of, I need this to happen, shift to, I trust that whatever happens will help me grow. And finally, focus on right now. The more you live in this moment, the less power the future has over you. Lesson 2. Master your mindset. 6:30 to 10 o'clock. Life throws problems at us constantly. Some days everything flows easily. Other days it feels like the world is against you. The difference between people who break under pressure and people who succeed isn't luck. It's mindset. How you think shapes how you experience life. And if you don't learn to control your mind will control you. You can't always control what happens around you. The economy, other people's actions, unexpected roadblocks. But you can control how you respond. That's where real strength lives. When you shift from reacting to responding, everything transforms. Psychologist William James said, "The best weapon against stress is our power to choose one thought over another." This is exactly what the Stoics taught. You don't have to believe every thought that enters your head. You don't have to let every difficult moment define you. Instead, you can train yourself to reframe situations, to step back and see them from a fresh angle. Here's an example. Imagine you're struggling at work. You keep messing up. Your boss is breathing down your neck. You feel like you're failing. One way to handle this is thinking, I'm terrible at this. I'll never improve. Maybe I'm just not good enough. That's a fixed mindset, and it traps you in self-doubt. But what if you changed that thought? What if instead you said, I'm learning. Every mistake teaches me something. This pressure is making me stronger. That's a growth mindset, and it turns struggles into stepping stones. The Stoics believed every challenge is a chance to practice strength, patience, toughness, wisdom. Seneca said, difficulties make the mind strong, just like hard work makes the body strong. That means every struggle, every setback, every frustrating moment is actually training you to be tougher. Think of it like lifting weights. If you never push yourself, you never build strength. Same thing with your mind. But let's be real, controlling your mindset doesn't happen overnight. Takes daily practice. One simple way to start: pay attention to your inner voice. Are you constantly feeding yourself thoughts of fear, doubt, and negativity? Or are you training yourself to see opportunities, to reframe situations, to stay calm when things get uncertain? Your mind is like a garden. What you plant is what grows. If you plant seeds of fear and worry, that's what will take over. But if you plant seeds of strength, clarity, and resilience, those will grow instead. Another way to strengthen your mindset: train yourself to stay present. So much stress comes from obsessing over the past or worrying about the future. But the only thing you can ever control is this moment right now. Next time you feel overwhelmed, ask yourself, What can I do right now that will move me forward? That one question can snap you out of panic and bring you back to what actually matters. Lesson 3. Trust the timing. Patience is one of the hardest skills to develop, especially when you're working towards something important. You've put in the effort, done everything right, and yet nothing seems to be happening. It's incredibly frustrating, isn't it? The world tells us success should come fast, that if we're not seeing instant results, we must be doing something wrong. But the truth is, life doesn't run on our schedule. It moves according to its own rhythm, and trying to rush things usually leads to disappointment. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus said, "No great thing is created suddenly." Think about that. Anything truly valuable, wisdom, strength, success, takes time to develop. Just like you can't make a tree grow faster by pulling on its branches, you can't force life to give you what you want before it's ready. There's an order to things. And when you learn to trust that timing, you free yourself from so much unnecessary stress. Imagine a young artist dreaming of making a name for themselves. They work tirelessly, pouring their heart into their craft. But they're not getting the recognition they want. At this point, they have two choices. They can get frustrated, lose faith, and quit. Or they can trust that every piece of work, every brushstroke, is preparing them for something bigger, even if they can't see it yet. Those who trust the process keep going. And eventually, they find themselves exactly where they're meant to be. We live in a culture obsessed with instant gratification. Fast food, fast information, fast success. We've been trained to believe that if something doesn't happen quickly, it's not worth waiting for. But some things must take time. Relationships, personal growth, mastering a skill, all of these require patience. Socrates said, "To do is to be." This means growth is in the process, not just the outcome. If you're always focused on when something will happen, you miss out on who you're becoming along the way. But here's the tricky part. How do you stay patient when it feels like nothing is moving? The Stoics would say, focus on what's in your control. You can't control the timing, but you can control your actions. You can keep showing up, keep putting in the work, keep growing as a person. And most importantly, you can trust that if something is meant for you, it will come, not a second too early or too late. One of the greatest lessons Stoicism teaches is the power of acceptance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things fate binds you to, and love the people fate brings you together with. Instead of resisting life's timing, learn to embrace it." If things aren't happening as fast as you want, maybe it's because you're still becoming the person who's ready for them. Lesson 4. Act with purpose, not desperation. Have you noticed that when you desperately chase something, it always seems to slip further away? Whether it's a job, a relationship, or success itself, the more frantic and needy your energy, the more things seem to move out of reach. It's almost like the universe senses desperation and responds by pulling back. But when you act with purpose, with calm confidence, everything starts aligning naturally. There's a powerful difference between chasing and attracting. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." In other words, before you act, be clear on why you're acting. Desperate action comes from fear, fear of missing out, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. But purposeful action comes from clarity and strength. When you know who you are and what you stand for, your actions become more intentional, more grounded. Let's take an example. Imagine two people searching for a job. The first person is desperate. They send out applications everywhere, applying for jobs they don't even want, panicking over every rejection. Their energy is scattered, anxious, uncertain. The second person is focused. They know their strengths. They take time to craft meaningful applications. They prepare without obsessing over immediate results. Who do you think is more likely to get hired? The one who is calm, confident, and strategic, not the one acting from fear. This applies to relationships too. If you enter a relationship out of desperation, fearing loneliness, seeking validation, it often leads to disappointment. But when you approach relationships with self-respect and confidence, you attract healthier, more fulfilling connections. People are drawn to those who are secure in themselves, not those grasping for attention. Aristotle spoke of eudaimonia, a state of living with purpose and fulfillment. He believed true happiness doesn't come from chasing external things, but from aligning your actions with your virtues and values. Act with wisdom, integrity, and purpose. Let the outcomes take care of themselves. When you move with intention rather than panic, you start making better decisions. You stop wasting time on things that don't align with your true goals. Think of a skilled chess player versus a beginner. The beginner reacts impulsively, making moves out of fear and uncertainty. The expert plays with patience, seeing the bigger picture, making deliberate choices. Life works the same way. If you're constantly reacting to fear, you'll make choices that lead to more chaos. But if you take a step back, act with clarity, and trust the process, you move closer to the life you actually want. So how do you shift from desperation to purpose? First, get clear on your why. Ask yourself, am I doing this because I truly want it, or because I'm afraid of not having it? Second, slow down. Desperation rushes. Purpose moves with patience. Instead of making decisions from fear, give yourself time to reflect and choose wisely. And finally, trust yourself. You don't need to force things into place. When you act with confidence and alignment, opportunities naturally come your way. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." A lot of desperation comes from imagined fears. What if I don't succeed? What if I fail? But the truth is, you're stronger than you think. And you don't need to scramble for what's meant for you. Act with purpose. Move with confidence. And watch how life starts aligning in your favor. Lesson 5. Let go of the need to control. Have you ever felt drained from trying to control everything? You plan, you push, you strategize, but somehow life still doesn't unfold the way you expect. It's exhausting, isn't it? You try to make people act a certain way, force circumstances into place, predict every possible outcome, only to find yourself feeling more stressed and less in control than ever. The harder you grip, the more things slip through your fingers. But here's the paradox. The moment you let go, life starts working in your favor. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." Think about that. True freedom doesn't come from controlling everything around you. It comes from letting go of the need to control. The more energy you spend trying to manage things that aren't yours to manage, other people's opinions, the future, the past, the more you drain yourself. But when you shift your focus to what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your responses, you reclaim your power. Take relationships, for example. Have you ever tried to change someone? Maybe you wanted a friend, a partner, or a family member to behave differently, to be more understanding, more supportive, more aligned with your expectations. But no matter how much you tried, they stayed the same. That's because people are not ours to control. We can communicate. We can set boundaries. We can choose who we allow in our lives, but we can't force someone to change. When you release that need, you free yourself from frustration and allow relationships to unfold naturally. The same applies to success. So many people believe that if they just push harder, they'll reach their goals faster. But there's a difference between effort and control. You should absolutely work toward your goals. But obsessing over every tiny detail, stressing about timing, fearing failure, that only creates resistance. Seneca said, "Fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant." In other words, when you fight against the natural flow of life, you create unnecessary struggle. But when you trust the process and focus on what's in your power, things unfold with much greater ease. Imagine you're preparing for an important interview. You've done the research. You've practiced. You're ready. But instead of trusting in your preparation, you start overthinking. What if they ask me a question I don't know? What if I mess up? What if I don't get the job? Now your energy shifts from confidence to anxiety. You walk into the interview nervous, tense, second-guessing yourself. That need for control is actually making you perform worse. But if you take a deep breath, remind yourself that you've done the work, and let go of the outcome, you walk in relaxed, present, and much more likely to succeed. So how do you start letting go of control? First, recognize what is and isn't within your power. The Stoics believed in the dichotomy of control. There are things we can influence and things we can't. Wasting energy on the uncontrollable only leads to frustration. Second, practice acceptance. Life won't always go according to plan, but that doesn't mean it's going wrong. Sometimes detours lead to better destinations. And finally, build trust. Not just in life, but in yourself. Trust that you can handle whatever comes, even if it's not what you expected. Conclusion. 2400 hours. 26:00. At the end of the day, life isn't about controlling every outcome. It's about mastering yourself. The moment you shift your focus from chasing to aligning, from forcing to flowing, everything starts falling into place. The Stoics knew this truth centuries ago, and now it's yours to apply. So take a deep breath, trust the process, and remember, real power comes from within. If this video resonated with you, there's another one on the screen right now that will take you even deeper into Stoic wisdom. Click on it and keep learning. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe so you never miss a new insight. Thanks for being part of the Stoic path. I'll see you in the next one.